strategist. She works with entrepreneurs, coaches, consultants, helping them build influence, monetize their expertise, and she's an expert in personal branding. So if you don't follow her, you totally should, because she shares tons of amazing content, including very, very useful tips and tricks. I constantly learn from her. And today we're going to talk about LinkedIn and how different it is in APAC as compared to US. So ask your questions, share your experiences and comments. And Virginia, can you please share your experience? Yeah, I know that your audience is global. Um, can you share your experience with LinkedIn and how it is different from other social media? Because you're social media expert, not just LinkedIn expert. And yeah, the floor is yours.
So, good morning, Anna. It's so great to be here. And I still remember very clearly when we first met. I think that was the first and last time we met in Singapore. All thanks to Icentia Brantology for bringing us together. And that was my first experience actually working with people from the Asia Pacific, working with people from Singapore and other parts of Asia Pacific. On your question, how is LinkedIn different from other social media? Actually at that company we were doing getting insights from different social media platforms, but it was also then that I learned that I want to niche down instead
Mm,
of talking about social media, because I'm sure you know that when you talk about Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, these platforms have different algorithms, and if you really want to
right.
be expert in all of this, you have to be updated on what's happening in all those platforms. So I decided I just want to choose one. And so I chose LinkedIn. And that means that my experience on other social media dates back long ago. So I'm really just familiar with LinkedIn. And I know how to use Facebook, but not as much as I know LinkedIn. But I think there are two things that I want to highlight in terms of difference. Number one, the main difference really is the mindset. The mindset of people on LinkedIn is different from the mindset of people on Facebook,
Right.
for example, right? For example, if you're on Facebook, you're probably thinking about catching with friends, catching with relatives. But on LinkedIn, the mindset is that, okay, how can I be successful or productive in my current role? So people are looking for content, people are looking for network to help them become more successful. That's the mindset. So they're ready to hire, they're looking for a job, and they're ready to do business with other people.
What I find interesting and very different about LinkedIn as compared to
Mhm.
other social media is there are no anonymous people. Almost, there are always, of course, somebody who is a fake profile now and then, but
Uh-huh.
generally, you are not anonymous to the point you are sharing your work experience, your company. People can see your colleagues and your manager.
Yeah.
So that I think brings like LinkedIn to this very separate box in the social media world. But you're very affiliated with your company as well. Um, that's why usually when it comes to social media policies and companies, uh, they would say on LinkedIn you do have to put this disclaimer. Many
Yeah.
companies say that the views are your own. So at the same time, LinkedIn is your very personal profile. It's not owned by the company. So I think it puts LinkedIn in very interesting context. Um, so when it comes to personal branding, which is your expertise, which is what we all do. And I believe that all of us, LinkedIn experts, sales trainers, PR people, we all can be better at personal branding. There's like no end in sight to learning new things.
Exactly.
Um, so it puts personal branding on LinkedIn is a very interesting concept in this sense because you are representing your brand solutions and yourself. So you use LinkedIn for many things like looking for a new role or hiring people, selling, um, growing your expertise. So what you think is this? What personal branding can do for you? I know it's a very general question. It's like super general question, but
Yeah.
I just want to see. I want to hear what you say. What personal branding can do for you?
There's
Make
a
you
lot of
famous?
things. There's so many in my list actually. But I think the main thing is that number one, it attracts opportunities that can help you boost your career, boost your income, and boost your influence. And so, all opportunities. In fact, when you start building your personal brand, you will realize one thing, that you can still do other things. If when
Right.
before you started, you know that these are the things that I can do, these are the things that I can offer. But along the way in your journey, the feedback that you will get from the LinkedIn community will give you an aha moment, like, oh, I
Mhm.
can do this, oh, I'm good at this. And that will help you continue to refine your positioning. And that's how you attract opportunities as well. So you plan for like 6 months, this is how you want to be known for, or 1 year, but along the way you will discover something else that you can do. And of course, if you build your brand, if you're not a commodity, if people know you, if people know you, you have a good reputation, then you can dictate the price. It's not like when you're a commodity,
Mm.
okay, everyone is your market. But when you have the brand, not everyone is your market. And then that allows you to increase also your pricing, increases your income, increases your revenue streams. So that's another benefit of building your personal brand. But for those who are employees, it's very critical
Mm.
that they understand, how do I not separate, but how do I align my personal brand with a corporate brand?
Yeah,
This is a
exactly.
main issue, main thing that most people are thinking about, especially salespeople, employees. They want to build their personal brand, but they cannot just ignore their company brand, or they can't
Right.
go to LinkedIn and just talk about their company, their products and services. That's not how it works. So alignment is super important there. A number two benefit, your personal brand will speak for you, and it will help you gain trust. Most of the time, when you are joining an event, for example, you have a
Mm.
long list of who you are. This is what I do. Even as an employee, when you join a company, you don't have an opportunity, especially in a hybrid setup or remote setup. You don't have an opportunity to tell everyone, hey, these are my credentials, these are my experiences, these are my skills. So, how can I help you? We don't have that opportunity. But when you build your personal brand on LinkedIn, they just have to go to your profile and they will say, oh,
Mm.
these are the things that you can do. And you will be surprised. You will get their trust just like that. I have an example of that, Anna. I
Oh,
used
well,
to
that's examples.
I before I became a LinkedIn consultant, an independent LinkedIn consultant, I worked as a freelancer, and I was a managing editor, I think around 2016. I was a managing editor in a US based company. And as a managing editor, I have a team of content creators. And many of the content creators are from the US. So at the time I was thinking, I was the managing editor and the team members are from the US, and English is their first language, English is my second language. So I was thinking, at first I was not comfortable, like how I'm the managing editor and they're from the US and all those things. But there was one time when one of my key writers visited my LinkedIn profile. I saw her viewed
Mm.
my profile back then, and then she emailed me. She emailed me, said something positive, and I am happy to see that you have all of these credentials and all of that. My reaction was, oh, thank you for thanks to my LinkedIn profile, I don't have to explain all of these things. So I
Mm.
got her respect, I got her trust, and I think that's a good example of making your LinkedIn profile speak for you. You don't have to brag, especially
Yeah.
in the Asia Pacific. In Asia, we don't want to brag, we don't want to talk about our achievements, which could be good and bad. But we will talk about
You
that
should.
later, I think.
So no,
Because
we can. So we. So how do we? So personal brand, especially when you're employed, when you can. There's a difficulty because you have to align your personal brand with the company brand. There's also a benefit because you can ride on the company brand if it's a well-known brand.
Mhm.
It is way easier to get speaking engagements. I mean, I'm speaking from somebody who worked on the brand side and now moved to a personal brand mostly side.
Mhm.
That's a huge difference. This is much easier to write established brand. Um, so, but then also on LinkedIn, you still need to have your personality. You still need to be who you are. So, what you're saying, because I will just play somebody who is not very familiar with the personal branding as a concept.
Mhm.
Do I need to present? Do I need to get it all out? Do I need to brag, especially here in this region? Uh, like how do I find this balance if I'm not really ready to get it all out, if I'm not confident, like many
Mhm.
people are not confident in their achievements. um, how do I do it? I hire a consultant, I learn, or
The first the first
I
thing I
do
would
whatever.
recommend, I think people have difficulty deciding what to post and how to build their personal brands because most of them are starting from the wrong mindset. When you go to LinkedIn and thinking about yourself or thinking about your products, thinking about selling, I have a quota, I have to meet this quota, or I have
Yes.
to do this, that's a wrong mindset. When you go to LinkedIn, the first step is not completing or optimizing your profile. The first step is really sit down and do an introspection. You really have to
Mhm.
get to know yourself because if you really want to be successful on LinkedIn, you have to be authentically you. You don't go there thinking about getting a sale because that's not going to happen instantly. So sit down, get to know who you are, what are your values, your interests, what are your skills, your strengths and weaknesses, and what is your purpose. This could be like a cliche. We've been
Mhm.
getting a lot of content. What's your purpose? Start with that. And I think it's a cliche because it's true. Unless you know your purpose, unless you know what you're really good at, you won't be able to be comfortable talking about what you're good at unless you believe in yourself. It all starts from that. So you become authentic. And to those employees, they shouldn't forget about themselves because we've seen it happen that every job is temporary. And
Mhm.
if you build your personal brand, wherever you go, whichever company you are associated with, people will follow you. People will be with you throughout your journey. So that's the beauty of it.
That's right. That's absolutely right. I agree with it 100% to 100%. Because if you come to LinkedIn just because you need to sell and it's pandemic and everybody is online and everybody is on LinkedIn and you have your quota, it's just, it will be a major disappointment if you don't have your baseline brand have existing on LinkedIn already. Um, so there are tons of personal branding advice, good and bad. Um, I will jump to one. What is the worst advice you ever heard about LinkedIn personal branding? Can you
Worst
tell me
advice.
the
There's so
worst?
many
The
advice
worst
going
ever.
out there. I can't say this is the worst, but I think because I believe that every advice comes with a context. So if I
Mhm.
give an advice, it's there's a context to it. If another expert gives an advice, there's a context to that. And that person does have a specific market. So there's
Mhm.
no advice that applies to everyone. It could be bad to me, it sounds bad to me. It's probably because I'm not the market of that person. So there's always the context. But I want to answer that with the most what I found to be the most misinterpreted advice. Not
Okay.
necessarily the worst, but the most misinterpreted advice. A lot of LinkedIn experts and personal branding strategists will tell us be consistent. I'm sure you've heard
Mhm.
this many times. Be
Yes.
consistent. You go to LinkedIn, you want to be successful, be consistent. But I
Yeah.
think people tend to misinterpret this. I give this advice as well. But again,
Mhm.
context is crucial here because people think that being consistent means posting every day at the same time. But that's not what
Yeah.
consistency is all about. That's just one small piece of it. Consistency in frequency, that's one. But there's so much more to consistency. Consistency in terms of messaging, consistency
Mhm.
in your positioning, consistency in your voice, consistency on how you align your personal brand with a company brand is another thing. And consistency in doing what works for you. So I think that's the most misinterpreted because
That's
if you are
true.
consistent, sorry, if you were consistent but you're doing the wrong thing, there's no way it's gonna work because you're
Yeah.
practicing doing the wrong thing. If you're consistent doing the right thing,
Mm.
that's gonna help. What do you think?
I actually, you're just reading my mind because I was, and again, you're absolutely right about the context. Sometimes this posting, regularly posting every day for 30 days, these challenges, they serve their purpose. But I this is I had a problem with those challenges. You post something for 30 days, 100 days, but it's not about frequency. It's not about showing up there every day with whatever, with anything. And then I'll give you example on how to, like, how people are, when it comes to writing, copywriters, and you're probably familiar with the writer's block as well. Like, when do you have writer's block? When you don't have any ideas, when you don't have material to write about. So when you have this consistency thought in mind, and like you're sitting in front of your computer, or you have to plan for 30 days ahead, whatever, and you don't know what to write about, and you force out something inspirational, for example, but it's not your idea, it's not what you're passionate about, it's just to fulfill the consistency rule. I think that's what fills LinkedIn with not very useful content, to be honest. So I think if you don't have anything to say, don't try to find your writer's block. Don't say anything.
Exactly.
It's okay to be quiet. It's okay not to post. It's okay to focus on something else for a while. Consistent is when you come back and you keep working on building the brand and getting your message out. Another thing is when you have the content creator mindset, when every idea that you meet, that you read about, or when you guys listen to us and you turn it into a post or an article or a course. So great. I so what is the difference between LinkedIn in US and LinkedIn in APAC, our main topic? Cultures are different. The way people present themselves and the way people talk to each other in professional context is different. Some of it is real difference. Some of it is perceived difference. So what is your main experience?
Okay. In my experience, when I started working with people from the US. And it's a good training for me because they're already open to the concept of personal branding. They just have to know they're already open to that. I don't have to tell them the benefits
Mhm.
and all that because they understand. They just need help on how to make LinkedIn work in building their personal brands further. When I started working with, from people from the Philippines, in Asia, like India, Singapore, and I've seen the difference in terms of culture. So for example, I think in Australia they have what they call the tall poppy syndrome. Maybe you've heard
No.
about this, in which the tallest poppy, if you're tallest, you're in a group, and you're the
Mhm.
tallest, people will cut you off. Because they don't want you to be the different, to be right there. So some of them are afraid to really talk about their achievements because they're thinking about what others will say about
Mhm.
them. So they're not comfortable doing that. There's some sort of counterpart of that concept, say here in the Philippines. Here in the
Mhm.
Philippines, we have this concept we call the crab mentality. That when people see you become successful, crabs, when they go up, for one crab to really go up, that crab has to pull the rest downward. So that crab could go up higher. So that there's that mentality here in the Philippines. So Filipinos are always conscious about, okay, if I build my personal brand, what would my relatives say about me? Or what would my boss say about me? That's the thing.
Mhm.
And they're afraid because people will criticize them if they, because when you're building your brand, you will show your achievements, credibility, and all that. So that's one of the things that hold them back. And so there's a lot of, personal branding is very young, especially here in the Philippines. Unlike in Singapore, I know in Singapore people are already familiar with this and they're open to this
Mhm.
idea. India also is, I think, more
Yeah.
personal, more open
Yes,
to
I
personal branding
agree.
compared
Yeah.
here in the Philippines, and its culture has a huge
Mhm.
impact on that.
I
Plus,
think India, yes, I worked with India quite a lot, and I think people are very open to personal branding concept, very perceptive.
and match it with LinkedIn. Here in the Philippines, not so many people know about LinkedIn. So
Okay.
they don't know personal brand, they don't know LinkedIn, so that's very difficult job for me. But in Singapore, in Singapore, they know both. Personal branding, okay.
Mhm.
LinkedIn, they're familiar with it, so easier. India as well, they're familiar with the platform and they're familiar with the concept. Even in Australia, that's why in Australia there's so many also
Mm.
LinkedIn experts. And there are many of them. It shows also the market. There's some market. People understand the value of LinkedIn already, unlike in countries like the Philippines.
So the most popular question I was ever getting, because I started working in Russia, very different market. Then the same year we met, I moved to Singapore. So for me, it was also the first year of working in Southeast Asia, and then I moved to work with APAC as well. Uh, I definitely see the culture difference in the way people communicate in professional context. So I'll give you an example that kind of illustrates my question. So it was today in the morning. I was reading my LinkedIn feed. Yes, that
Today,
early today. Um, and there was an advice saying that instead of following up with a customer with some nicely worded message like, "Hey, how are you? I'm just checking in." Instead of that, just ask a direct question like, "Are you ready to move forward?" Which to me, it's actually a very Russian thing, I think, to do as well. But I don't think that would land well here in APAC, because this is the question I was being asked the most when we talk about social selling, when we talk about building personal brand and relationship on LinkedIn, but also doing outbound because you have your quota.
yeah.
So the question is, it's not how it works here. We need to build relationship first. We cannot be that direct. So do you think it's real? Do you think it's perceived? Can we be direct like that? Can you be direct with a customer and just go for it?
When you say direct, is it on the second message or
Um,
first message or
I think first message is kind of common everywhere. You
yeah.
introduce
Mm, mm,
yourself.
mm,
But
mm.
in general, if you get engagement happening, and you have to have the whole relationship online, like this year's, you do not have the luxury sometimes going on a trip and meeting your customers. Is it so? The question, it kind of implies that, you know what, social selling is not working in APAC because you need to build a real
Mm.
relationship instead of just shooting messages on LinkedIn to strangers. Which, of course, is from reality, from practice, I see this is not true, but this is this perception of not having a sales conversation online rather than having it offline. I think this is this cultural difference. Like part of it is a perceived difference, probably. Um, how do you sell on LinkedIn in APAC? Is
How
it
do
a
I
difference?
sell on
Yeah,
LinkedIn?
is
It's
there a
all
difference from
inbound.
US?
Okay, there's a big difference, yes. Number one, depending on your approach, you should be ready to anticipate the responses. Because
Yes.
if you become very direct in APAC market, this is based on
Mhm.
our experience, my
Mhm.
experience. If you are direct, you should be ready with silence. And when there is silence, you would not know what happened. So there's no insights to get. Okay, did he like it? Is there anything
Mhm.
wrong? Things like that. But in the US, you give them a direct message like that. Most of the time, many of them will respond to you, negative or positive. It gives you feedback. There must be something
Mhm.
wrong with the messaging, or it's a good one. They will tell you directly. But here in APAC, when they don't like what you said, they will treat you with silence. And silence
Right.
doesn't help because there's no insight to that. Whether is there anything wrong with I said? Is there am I too fast? Am I too quick? And things like that. Because relationship is very, very crucial to us here in Asia. And it's not like we don't go to LinkedIn. There's the mindset of we don't go to LinkedIn because we want to buy something. I think in
Mhm.
general it works for all. But once you've built that relationship, it breaks that barrier already. So taking the conversation off LinkedIn, maybe a phone
Yeah.
call or a Zoom call, that is what's going to happen. We don't sell. I don't advise selling on LinkedIn. Do it off LinkedIn.
Right.
And we can see this and I just want to add, we can see this even in small things on LinkedIn. For example, I think I mentioned this before, in
Mhm.
connection request. If you're connecting
Yeah.
with people, say from the US, most people that I encounter from the US, they connect only with people they know. If I don't
Mhm.
know, why should I? If I don't know you, why should I connect with you? You should give me a good reason why. And they're so direct when they reply. When you connect with them and they don't know you, I remember when I was starting, I was connecting with them from the US, and I would get response like, "Do I know you? Have we met? Why are you connecting with me?" That was the time. Oh, there must be something wrong with what I'm doing. They're very direct. Also, endorsements. Here in Asia,
Mhm.
for example, I want to build my profile. I want to get as many endorsements as possible. Now, if I
Okay.
ask people to endorse me, or if I endorse people, for example, if I don't know you personally, we haven't worked directly, and I endorse you. If you're from the US, they don't actually say, normally they won't say thank you. They will just ignore the endorsement. Or many of them will reply and say, "Why are you endorsing me? Have we worked before?" Things like that. These are the things I didn't experience in APAC. In the
Mhm.
Philippines, if you endorse them, they're very quick to endorse you back. No word at all. It's like give and take. They understand. There's nothing to lose, things like that, even in other parts of Asia. But aside from that, of course, but of course, we need to consider it's because also of the culture. Another one, responses to outreach results. So you will be
Mhm.
surprised, even if you use the same messaging, you get different responses in different markets. Asia Pacific, silence means probably they don't like it. But in other markets, say in the US, they will tell you directly. If something is wrong with the message, they will tell you. And I think even in Australia, they're open. They will respond to you and tell you something is wrong. Like, it sounds
Mhm.
scripted. It's too long. I don't have time for this. Or they at least they click decline. Some will
Okay.
just
Right.
treat
Yeah.
you with silence, but others are so quick to say decline. If it's decline, it's decline. There's no problem with that. At least you know. If it's accepted, it's accepted. So this is more like on the emails when we reach out.
So there's lots of indirect feedback, indirect communication that you just, I guess, you need to have experience to navigate. And on social, yeah, it makes it more complicated in many markets where you don't get feedback, you don't get responses, people are
Yes.
not very active, you don't have anything to engage with because people don't put their thoughts out there. So I think the subtle, it's a great insight on the endorsements. I think that I see way more LinkedIn posts in APAC that give kudos to their managers or colleagues. I don't see many in US, but that's just sample size of one. Um, Great. I think this is a huge learning curve for many, even for us. We've been
Yeah,
here for a while. We
exactly.
still don't
Mhm.
have it figured out. Um, and I hope that we'll keep talking about it because this is a great platform to share insights, to share experiences. Um, that was an early morning show. Let's try. Let's try early afternoon show next time.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Virginia. That